Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at the second major aspect of this week, which is Mars in Libra squaring Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. We're going to talk about the fact that Jupiter is in the superior square, exalted, while Mars is in the inferior position and debilitated. That's going to flavor the way that we interpret this combination of symbols. So we'll cover that. And then we're going to look at this from the standpoint of 5 things to watch for, make it a little horoscopic, as I was explaining yesterday, and we'll take a look at the 5 things to watch for within those 4 major areas of life. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for with respect to the interior or psychological experience, relationship experiences, work, public kinds of experiences, or inner private family dynamics, all of which really cover the 4 angular houses in a birth chart. And so in that way, we can make a list of 5 things to watch for that also, almost touches on the theme of a horoscope or kind of feels similar to one. So, and this is all coming from my troubled relationship with horoscopes. So anyway, on that note, before we get into it, please remember to like and subscribe. It is my goal to get to 100,000 subscribers on the channel by next summer. It really helps if you watch regularly. You just click the subscribe button, helps us grow. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com, not to be confused with a dance club, Nightlife Astrology. There's at least one person a week that calls us Nightlife, which is kind of fun. Anyway, go over to the events page, click on Immersive Retreat. Our promotion for the day is the Oracle Within training program, which we're hosting in Mexico next June. This retreat is meant to deepen your connection to the intuitive, oracular, and divinatory aspect of astrology. Astrology is craft, it's theory, there's a logos, and that's mainly what we teach in all of our programs. But this is the first program that I've ever developed that is specifically devoted to talking about astrology as oracular and divinatory, where your living relationship with the oracle and acting as something of a medium for that voice is an important part of the craft that I don't think we spend enough time talking about. So that's why I'm leading this retreat. I'm very excited about it. There is a video at the end of today's content that will tell you more about the retreat. We are over halfway full now, and the early bird rate ends at the beginning of October. So you still have a little bit of time to join, but we are filling up quickly. So be sure to check that out, and I hope to see some of you there. Also, go to events and click on live talks. You'll see that my live talks for the autumn, September, October, November, December are all posted. This month, I'm starting a new webinar series that will come throughout the months ahead on the pairing of planets. So learning planetary combinations is hugely important for the development of your craft as an astrologer, or it really helps understanding planetary pairings in your own birth chart. So we're going to be looking at Mercury's pairings to kick off this new little mini series that I'm doing through my monthly webinars. We're going to look at Mercury paired with every other planet and how we understand that both philosophically and then symbolically. This is going to be a really fun series. We'll do Venus in November and pair Venus with all the planets, talk about that too. And I've got a talk on the 2nd house and the 11th house coming up in October and December. Those are really good houses to get to know from the ancient perspective as well. When you register for any of those talks, you get the recording always in addition, in case you can't make it live or you want to rewatch it later. So on that note, let us now turn our attention to the real-time clock, where we will take a look at this Mars-Jupiter dynamic and start interpreting it. So here we are today, Thursday, September 4th, and Mars in Libra is applying to a square with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, to be fair, this dynamic has been forming since, you give it about 3 degrees, since last weekend. So anything we're talking about today and tomorrow on the channel, both of which today and tomorrow will cover this Mars-Jupiter dynamic, is something that you might have been experiencing all the way from last weekend, basically, which would be around the 30th, 31st of August. Bring it forward, and today, between today and tomorrow morning, Thursday, September 4th and 5th, the square is perfecting. But then let's give it 3 degrees of separation again, and we're not seeing it fully separated until the middle of next week. And it's important to mention that for some people, a lot of people, things tend to really spark around the perfection moment. So today, tomorrow. But it is not uncommon for things leading up to or just after. And it's funny how many people in the comment section, when I do a video, will say, "Oh gosh, I wish I would have known this 4 days ago." You were within the engagement range, most likely, or looking back, they'll go, "Oh wow, this just hit 4 or 5 days later." It's like a full moon in that respect. The morning of a full moon, the night of a full moon, the day after a full moon, it's full moony. So, transits work like that as well. So we try to get into the sort of nexus of the symbolism from the standpoint of the linear time passages that happen. But yeah, keep in mind that this may continue on, carry over into the middle of next week. It's also important, let me actually bring the chart back up to note a few of the dignity conditions. So, for example, the faster moving planet is the one we say is applying to create the aspect, but within the aspect dynamic, there is typically a planet with squares, sextiles, and trines. There is one planet that will have the upper hand through what is called the inferior superior aspect dynamic. So, in this case, if we think about, you can start with either planet and imagine you're the planet looking into the center of the wheel like a person staring into the center. If the aspect is coming off from the planet's right-hand side, you can imagine you're facing in and you're Jupiter. The aspect to Mars is to your right. So with the sextile to Virgo, the square to Libra, or the trine to Scorpio on the right-hand side of Jupiter, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, all of those, for any planet in Cancer making an aspect to any of those planets in any of those signs, would put the planet in Cancer in the superior position. And there are some really interesting philosophical reasons for all of this that we break down in my classes. We can't get into that so much today, but suffice to say, when Jupiter's in the superior position, within the Jupiter-Mars dynamic, Jupiter in Cancer is going to be more strongly influencing the dynamic. It's sort of like if you had two people and they were hanging out, and some relationships, there's an even flow. In other relationships, one person might be a little brighter or louder, within the friendship, and the other one's a bit more of a receptive receiver type. Doesn't mean that they don't play a role, but they may not be as bright and loud and sparky as the other person, right? So you can kind of think of it that way. It's a fun image. And so in this dynamic, the exalted Jupiter in Cancer meeting with Mars has all of the flavor of a normal Mars-Jupiter exchange, except for Jupiter exalted in Cancer is more heavily influencing the exchange than Mars in Libra is. This is also significant because Mars is debilitated in Libra while Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which would likely mean that any of the harsher dynamics in a Jupiter-Mars combination would be mitigated somewhat by the presence of the exalted Jupiter in this case. You're going to feel that in terms of how the delineations are shaped. So in every delineation I'm about to provide you with, I kept in mind the superior position of Jupiter in Cancer. So, if I explained that nuance within every delineation I gave, we'd be here forever. Because the way that those delineations are formed becomes rather intuitive after a while for you as an astrologer. But I encourage you, if you like those kinds of subtle dynamics, listen carefully to the delineations. And what you should hear is a recurrence of the kind of maybe more prominent voicing of Jupiter in Cancer within them. This is something, again, that I teach in my programs, how to do this. But it's a subtle little point of craft that often influences my lists, but you don't always even know it, So anyway, all right. So we've got 5 things to watch for given this dynamic. By the way, tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to look at this from a deeper philosophical and spiritual and psychological perspective. Today is meant to be more mundane. Here's the ways that this planetary pairing may show up in your life in these very common areas of life. Tomorrow we'll get a little deeper and more reflective, which I think both are, really healthy. So, all right, anyway, 5 things to watch for in 4 spheres of life that correspond to the 4 angular houses of a birth chart. Internal psychological dynamics. How do we process a Jupiter-Mars square in these signs, given these dignity exchanges we've just talked about, when it comes to just how it might show up internally or psychologically? The second place we'll look at will be love and relationships. How does this show up in intimate, interpersonal dynamics, maybe marriage, lovers, close friends, anything that is a dynamic interpersonal connection. Number 3 would be career, work, or the public sphere. And number 4 would be family dynamics, or maybe the more private internal place of our chart there. You can think of these as 1st, 7th, 10th, and 4th house kinds of things. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start with the internal psychological sphere. When Mars and Jupiter get together, maybe one note for everyone is that while Jupiter, broadly speaking, has a correlation with wisdom and knowledge and faith, for example, all of the institutions that are supposed to ideally convey virtue, order, meaning, and coherence to human life. Institutions of religion, ideally. Institutions of education, ideally. Governments, ideally, are all supposed to give us order, meaning, coherence, justice, beauty, fairness, equity, and so forth. They fall short all of the time. But we're talking about archetypes, and archetypes in the living world are always reflections of an ideal space, but there's something about this world that resists, resists perfection. It resists, we don't become perfect triangles, in this world, and probably for good reason, but we have this intricate dance with ideals, and Jupiter is about the way in which the universe itself is meaningful, coherent, purposeful. There's a design, there's an intelligence, and we can study and learn that. The pursuit of knowledge through philosophy, ethics, education, religion, the creation of coherence through ideal forms of governance. These are all Jupiterian. When we talk about Mars, we're talking about the reality of conflict. We're talking about the reality of individual wills that may battle or clash. We're talking about the reality of competition, the reality of things like dominance or winning while someone loses, cutting things and separating them as opposed to unifying them. All of these serve a very interesting role in the cycling play of life and death, light and dark, which truly goes beyond good and evil morally, although there's a way in which Mars will frequently show up in relation to things like violence and war and conflict. And it's hard to sort of not call the planet malefic from that standpoint, which is why for thousands of years we honor and acknowledge that designation, because Mars can be very Marsy. But when these two planets come together, conflicts that are related to things like justice, conflicts that are related to the law, conflicts that are related to, in the sign of Cancer, for example, families, civil, I jokingly called this video a day in cosmic family court, divorce lawyers, divorce attorneys, family conflicts, tribal conflicts, civil war, clans, rival clans. These are the kinds of things that can come up when Jupiter in the sign of Cancer gets into a square with Mars in Libra. Questions about fairness and justice, emotional attachment versus impartiality, fairness that requires severing partial subjective biases. These are all the kinds of things that can come up. Jupiter and Mars can also be very gallant and brave and can fight on behalf of things that are ennobling or that carry a sense of righteous goodness, virtue, etc. So you'll often see the Jupiter-Mars pairing in the charts of people who are very successful athletes or who are very inspiring coaches, or Jupiter-Mars can also come together in moments of great courage or bravery or the willingness to take a risk, to be a pioneer, to blaze a trail, and to do so with a sense of conviction, a meaning, a sense of mission or purpose behind it. These are all Mars-Jupiter dynamics. So just kind of addressing Mars-Jupiter broadly, now let's take a look at how this dynamic may play out on the internal and psychological sphere. So I should have done that first, but anyway, here we are. So internally, the experience of a moral conflict would be my first thing to watch for. You want to be generous, you want to be forgiving, you want to be loving and accepting, and the emotional sense of graciousness and big-heartedness may come into some conflict with competition, judgments, resentments. And so I would wonder about an inner sense of what is the right thing to do here? What is the fair or just thing? And questions about what you ought to be feeling versus what you do feel. Is this partial? Is it impartial? Should it be partial or impartial? Explorations like that as an inner tension. So more, let's call it moral conflict within. The second one would be self-discipline versus indulgence. The reason for this is that Jupiter in Cancer in that superior square can be very emotionally indulgent. Not that it's not to say that Jupiter in Cancer is emotionally indulgent. It can be. And so when there is an impulse toward indulging your emotions, indulging your feelings, indulging your wants and desires, and losing some sense of a more rational, discerning, fair-mindedness or impartiality, like a voice in you that says, let's be discriminating, let's be very discerning, and let's not get overrun by big emotional impulses. So that could be a way that you experience the conflict, and it wouldn't be surprising to feel like the Jupiter in Cancer part is very overwhelming or very, very strong in terms of the inner conflict of what I desire, what I want, how rational and detached should I be about it. The other one would be let's call it the courage to protect. And the courage to protect could come across as the strong, almost maternal instinct of protecting something vulnerable, the guardian archetype, the defender of loved ones or family or home or things that are like children or people who are weak or vulnerable, or a population of people who is marginalized or hurting. And this courage to want to advocate for their rights or their safety or their equality. So that just that sense of almost a kind of spirit of activism that might be rising up within you. I would be careful about utilizing, like when you have strong subjective feelings and you can find a way of making them appear righteous or morally correct. You can convince yourself that something that's perhaps very personal to you is what do I want to say here? You can Jupiter in Cancer inflecting itself on Mars in Libra can take deeply subjective personal biases and have you convincing yourself that they're rational, good, true, and that they're not just reflective of your personal subjective orientation, but that they're somehow right for everyone, right? So it can be very tricky. It would be like a situation where if you felt like your kid was in a really, really vulnerable position, and that's a legitimate thing to feel, but then you could convince yourself that there was some huge systemic problem that you could go and try to champion without recognizing that what you were championing, even if it was a good thing, was so deeply rooted in a personal feeling of vulnerability about your own kid. And sometimes that it's very important that the two things see each other clearly so you can advocate while also being honest about where you're coming from, because otherwise sometimes like a passive aggression will come through. So inflated righteousness could be a thing to watch for internally. And then I would also say that this is a transit that can teach us how to be more emotionally discerning, and wise. So we can turn powerful emotions into a wiser, more careful intelligence. So let's call it an opportunity for greater emotional intelligence. So, yeah. So those are my 5. Now, you'll notice that in these 5, I'm not delineating them so sharply with banners. The reason for that is that within this particular format that I'm using, first of all, I don't want to make 20 banners, but second of all, I like being able to kind of weave them together a little bit more seamlessly and just talk about them rather than delineating in such a linear way 20 separate times. So there, I do have 5 points written down, but you'll notice I'm just sort of flowing through them a little bit more. So it's a little less linear than it was in the past, but that I personally prefer it this way for this format. And you'll see that in other talks, the 5 things to watch for are still there and more linear. So I'm trying to include both, just as a side note, since I've been talking about craft this week. All right, let's get into love and relationships. So the theme of protection and care, and a concern for protection and care within relationships comes to my mind right away. It is possible that some of the care and protection motif within relationships could subtly be about controlling people under the guise of care. Like, I think about a mom who may be very controlling but says that everything she's doing is for the safety of her kids. And so it's like partially true but partially a mask for control in like the it's caring, but it's a mask and it's really about control. That's what I'm trying to say. So the second one to me would be about moral debates within relationships. What is right or what is wrong for the relationship, or different people having different, almost like ideological, moral, or ethical outlooks on a situation, and having to work through that together, or it being a source of real tension. Number 3 would be in relationships, sometimes we seek our meaning or value by being someone's counselor, therapist, helper, protector, advocate. So that theme could ramp up right now. And I'm not saying that we don't heal, advise, protect. We grow each other up, we heal each other. There's all sorts of things that we do that are about caring, and I'm actually an advocate for those kinds of things. In relationships, I don't think we're all meant to be whole before we love. We're meant to help each other become whole. We're meant to heal each other. However, it is possible that if we are constantly in relationships where we act as someone's therapist, helper, aid, guide, where maybe we pay the bills more, or there's some inequality and we're deriving too much value from being the helper, the healer, the nurse, we might have to look at that right now. Well, that's another one. Another number 4 on my list is questions similar, right? Which has to do with the question of give and take in relationships, almost like contractually. It's the last one I was thinking about more in terms of healing and helping dynamics in relationships, where we help, we heal, we advise, we counsel, we hold space for, and then maybe we're deriving too much of our self-worth from that. So it brings up questions of reciprocity. But this one is more explicitly to me about reciprocity, where there's also when you're getting into a relationship and one person makes a lot of money and the other partner maybe doesn't make as much, and you're living together and you're figuring out how to do the bills, that's a tricky situation. Lots of people handle that differently. The person with more money might say, look, it's 50-50 regardless. Or the person with more money might say, look, I make a lot more money. Let me just pay a little bit more for rent. So I could see there being questions in relationships about what this unique bond looks like in terms of what each person should be sharing or providing. What does real reciprocity look like in this unique situation? And then finally, when relationship drama is framed as an opportunity for growth, um, rather than one person has to be right, one person is wrong, and the relationship ends unless we agree or something like that. The reason I say this is because this is a Jupiter in Cancer that's exalted, squaring Mars in a Venus ruled sign of Libra that is really interested in harmony and fairness. So one of the like surprising benefits of this transit within loving relationships, any interpersonal dynamic, would be the ability that we have to see conflict as something that can grow us, that can foster growth and love. Jupiter in Cancer, in other words, inflecting itself on Mars in Libra, says actually this conflict is an opportunity for the fertile development of love and bondedness and attraction and connection. Relationships may actually thrive when conflict can be reframed as a growth opportunity. So consider that as well. All right. So anyway, those are 5 things to watch for in love and relationships. Let's move to career or work. Career in the workplace, number 1 to me would be defense of principles behind the work, behind how something's being done. Another one would be forms of moral leadership or themes of morality influencing the development of projects or the workplace environment itself. The other one would be managing conflicts within the workspace among teams or colleagues, and how do we resolve tensions or conflicts in the best possible manner. Number 4 would be anything to do with legal conflicts related to the workplace. Unfortunately, this is a combination that can lead to like legal actions. And so how are we handling the potential for legal debates about the law and things like that? The other thing I could see here closely related would be a sense of moral duty or obligation, a sense of fairness or principles informing the actions of a company or workplace, a concern for the public good or something like that, or public safety, informing how things are being done. But also, so public protection and also protection of the company and legal actions and conflicts around the company. And then anything that has to do with conflicts between companies or conflicts, competition and conflict in the workplace or from one company to another, informing how decisions are being made. And I would be on guard against passive aggressive ways of handling perceived competition or conflict. So, all right, finally, family dynamics, private home, family sector of life. First and foremost, the video is named after it, A Day in Cosmic Family Court. Anything around justice, law, legal actions or pursuits, the settling or resolution of conflict within the family, maybe through legal matters or advisors or counselors or family mediators or family therapists. So just conflict around the family, civil strife, and the healing or resolution of conflicts and tensions around home and family. So similar to, let's call it family justice, would be protectors of home and family. So themes around advocacy or guardianship, again, but with respect to things like home, family. This could be something as simple as having a home alarm system installed. It could also have something to do with, well, maybe you get a guardian dog breed, or you are, you go volunteer at a women's shelter where, women coming out of domestic abuse are receiving help. So you can see those themes: protector of home and family, family justice. I could see there being passive aggression in the home. Like, again, how do you handle differences of view when it comes to things that are ethical or moral or have to do with fairness? And there might be just really different views among people who really do love and care about each other, that have to be explored or examined. So let's call it not so much. I'm thinking on one level of like legal issues around home or family, like divorce attorneys or real estate attorneys. Another one I'm thinking about is more about just clashes of value or belief or view, especially on things that are moral or ethical within the family, and having to figure out how to resolve those tensions. I could see clashes in terms of generational values. What defines a good, healthy home and family? What are the values that my parents or my grandparents have versus my own? So, where Jupiter and Cancer inflects itself onto Mars and Libra, it's like, well, I ought not display any sense of being different or having a different opinion or perspective because I don't want to upset my parents or my grandparents. But actually, I have a different perspective, or I have a different value that clashes with the tradition, and I'm worried that I'll upset the bonds of my family by making it known. For example, sometimes people within religious families will be a bit of a black sheep and say something like, "Look, I support people who don't identify as a Christian, or I support people who don't identify as straight," and that may fly in the face of some moral or spiritual religious view in the family. This is the kind of transit that could bring up almost like generational clashes of value or belief, um, with the sense of like, "Ugh, I don't want to upset or disturb the family because there's something really maybe beautiful or nice about it." Jupiter and Cancer, right? Inflecting itself upon Mars and Libra. Mars and Libra might feel like it has to sort of bow to, like, I don't want to offend my sweet grandmother, but she is closed-minded about something, or do you know what I mean? Finally, I would look at opportunities for healing. Uh, the home becomes a site of growth, wisdom, and moral grounding if we allow it to be that in whatever way it needs to be right now. So there we have it. All right. So tomorrow we're going to take a look at this square again, but from a deeper philosophical perspective. We're going to meditate on this and try to unpack some of the deeper implications for our life. Like, one question I like to ask myself as a creative making this content is, okay, so here's this transit that comes through and we have all these ways it can appear that we've just unpacked, but why? Why would this pattern be a part of what a soul, a spirit soul, a being encounters at all? And I think asking that deeper question is in line with the deeper philosophical core of our tradition. And if we don't do that, we're really missing something, because then all we're doing is essentially just digging for information about what's going to happen. So engaging with the why behind it is an important part of astrological reflection. So we'll do that tomorrow after I sign off here. There's an informational video about that retreat. I hope that you will check it out. Again, the early bird rate is till early October. I think the first week of October, the early bird rate ends. So you still have several weeks to sign up for the retreat. We are about over halfway full now. So just make sure that you think about that soon. Yeah, I can't wait to hang out with some of you in community in Mexico. It should be really fun. All right, that's it for today. Hope you're having a good one. See you again later. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm really excited to tell you more about the Oracle Within, the retreat that we'll be hosting in Mexico in June of 2026. So this is a little informational video that I've made to answer all the questions that you might have about the retreat. In this video, I'm going to start by telling you more about what you will learn on the retreat, what the focus of our studies will be, and then I'm going to tell you about our daily format and sort of what day-to-day life will look like at this retreat center outside of the actual material we'll be studying. I'm going to then tell you who this retreat is ideal for, what kind of background you may want to have before coming along. And then finally, I'm going to tell you more about how you can register. And of course, I'll take you over to the actual retreat website page so that you know where all of the information is located. There's also a really rich FAQ section that will probably answer any further questions you may have. On that note, let's start with what will I learn? So for a very long time, astrologers have talked about what astrology is. What is this? Is it some kind of karmic science? Is it a science of causal energies and influences? Is this actually scientific? Like, what order of knowing is astrology? If we say we can know something about reality, then how can we actually say that when it comes to astrology? These may seem like really deep, dense philosophical issues, but actually they're at the heart of what it means to really deepen into astrology, to have an understanding of what this actually is so fundamental and so helpful. Throughout all of the programs that I teach at Nightlight, I, of course, talk at length about my belief that astrology is a form of divination, that this is a language of signs and omens, very much like the tarot or the I Ching or many other systems of symbolic divination from all around the planet. We're going to spend a lot of time on this retreat talking about what astrology is. From a historical and philosophical perspective, what is divination? What is divination, not just in this tradition, but all over the planet? What kind of things does a divinatory view of the cosmos assume about the nature of reality, about the nature of the soul, and what we're actually doing as practitioners when we practice astrology or when we study it or when we use it for ourselves? So, one of the teachers that I had that made a huge impact on me, and 12 years ago when Jupiter was last in Cancer, I hosted him for a retreat on astrology as a form of divination, is Jeffrey Cornelius. He wrote this book called The Moment of Astrology, Origins in Divination, which is, in my opinion, one of the best books on astrology ever written. This will be something like a preparatory textbook that a lot of students on the retreat I'll recommend read before you come to this course. Over the program for the course of a full week, in the mornings, we're going to be talking about the history, the metaphysics, the philosophy, the ancient mystics, and what they said about the nature of astrology itself. So we're going to think really deeply about what is astrology. Then in the afternoons, we're going to talk about how to connect with an oracle. Connecting with an oracle, connecting with astrology as a divinatory system, in other words, is about the marriage of intuition and being able to listen to the oracle speak while also utilizing the logic of craft. How do you marry those two things together? It's not something we take a lot of deliberate time to talk about as astrologers. So in the mornings, we're talking about history, philosophy, theory of astrology. In the afternoons, we're going to be talking about how to actually develop a living, vibrant relationship with an oracle so that it's informing how you approach the craft of a reading or how you approach the craft of astrology itself, if it's something that you maybe just use only for you in your own spiritual path. Either way, practitioners, hobby students are all welcome. So a lot of hands-on immersive work with charts, with live clients, with different systems of divination, and talking a lot about how to connect with an oracle experientially in our afternoons, where our mornings will be devoted to theory. It's about 30 to 40 hours worth of content that we'll be doing over the course of a week together, which means this is effectively like one of my advanced training programs condensed into a week. It's brand new material, brand new curriculum, doesn't appear anywhere else in the Nightlight programs, and yet everything that this program includes is really a condensation of the underlying philosophy of astrology itself that is a part of all of the Nightlight programs and all of my work as a whole. And again, most of that was deeply inspired by the work of Jeffrey Cornelius, who's I consider him something of a mentor in my life. So that's a bit about what you will learn. If you have questions about what you will learn, you can feel free to email me for more details, info@nightlightastrology.com. Now, I want to talk about the format of the retreat. When you're on this retreat, first of all, you're in a beautiful sort of jungle beach location near Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, for a week, which means we every day will not just be about theory and experiential, immersive, oracular work, which I'm very excited about. I have a ton of really good curriculum written for us as a group to go through, but in the mornings, we're going to have the option of starting your morning with breath work, yoga, meditation. In the evenings, we'll probably cap our days off with a little bit of centering as well. So my wife, Ashley, who I ran a yoga studio with for a decade, will be with me leading daily meditation and yoga. She is an incredibly good yoga teacher, very grounded and very, wherever your level is at, there'll be something there for you. And that's optional as well. So every day you have a little meditation and yoga. There's healthy food that serves people if you're vegan, vegetarian, or eat meat or whatever. There's options for food. There's a beach. There's a pool. There's some jungle hikes available. So our days will be broken into periods of free time, periods of rest, and periods of focused learning with things like meditation and yoga as options that are there for everyone. We'll also have some other meaningful group exercises that we'll do that will be, again, about how do you connect with an oracle? How do you make a conversation with the oracle a daily part of your life? So that's something of the format that you can look forward to in this beautiful kind of oceanside retreat setting. More information on the website. I'll show you that in a second. Who is this for? Ideally, you are someone who has a background in traditional Hellenistic astrology already. Wherever that comes from, if it's my courses or not, I want people coming to this retreat to have some pretty good solid background in Hellenistic astrology already. Or if you're from within our programs, then as long as you are enrolled in the year 1 program, you don't have to have finished it. You just need to be at least enrolled in it. Then you would be more than welcome. Any alumni from any of our programs would be welcome. And again, people who with some serious background in traditional astrology already, just because I don't want people to come along with maybe a modern background, but zero understanding of Hellenistic. So that would be who I would recommend this for. Spaces are limited and we anticipate the retreat will fill up rather quickly. So I really recommend registering as soon as you can. You also have the early bird rates to help you save. Finally, how do I register? I'm going to take you over to the website and you will find that here, the website, you can find it under the events page. Go to Immersive Retreat, or under the courses, it's our new course called The Oracle Within. When you scroll down, you're going to see everything that the program includes, basically everything I've gone over, maybe a little bit more details and depth there, as well as a little personal note for me that I wrote about why this means so much to me. You'll learn more about Mar de Jade, which is the beautiful retreat center. You can check it out. You're going to book through us. So you don't book through the retreat center, you book through us, and then we take care of it. At the bottom, you're going to find registration options that will be available starting on August 11th. That's today. Right now, as I'm looking at this, we don't have the prices listed yet. It's still kind of under construction. But at the bottom, you'll find different available options for registering. The different options will include different room options, and there's different. So if you want a private room versus maybe sharing a room with someone we'll assign you with that's part of the group, or maybe even a small group dorm room where there's like 5 people are sharing a room and you're comfortable being with other students on the trip, stuff like that. So there'll be some options there for everyone. There's an early bird rate that'll be in effect until October, saves you a little bit of money off the cost. And then also all of the different room options that are available at different price tiers depending on and they go first come first serve in terms of like, so there's some ocean view rooms. The people who book first will get the best. We just go best available first and just run it like that. So anyway, again, as you are looking over anything on the page, you have any questions, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. I hope that this has been helpful. I can't wait to have finally an immersive in-person training program in a beautiful location. It's nice to do things online, but I really love having in-person time available. And I know that you're going to also really enjoy working with Ashley. During the evenings throughout the week, Ashley will also have some little workshops that she'll be offering as options for people that are part of your retreat package that will be on plant spirit medicine topics and how to use different plant teachers to work with different astrological signatures in the chart. You got a difficult Mars, work with this plant. You got a challenged Venus, try this plant. So there's going to be some really fun little add-ons around plant spirit medicine that Ashley, if you know her on my channel, she talks about plants often, will also lead. So anyway, that's it. That's your informational video. I hope that this was useful. Hope to see some of you on the retreat in Mexico next year. Take it easy, everyone.